everybody. In this video, I'm going to go over your midterm exam instructions. Let's get into it. All right, so here we are in Blackboard. To get to your midterm exam, go to Assignments, go to this midterm exam folder. It'll be here with weekly analyses under Assignments, and you'll see 4 items here. Now, there are only 3 things that you need to do for your midterm exam, but there's 4 bits of stuff here, so I want to go over what this is. So, first of all, half your exam is going to be objective multiple choice fill-in-the-blank questions. That can be found here, where it says Fill 325 Midterm Exam Objective Component. This is half the midterm exam, 25 multiple choice fill-in-the-blank questions. When you click on it, it'll say that it's due end of day, Friday, March 4th, and there's no time limit for it. So just complete this before March 4th. Once you click begin, it'll start that. Now, to that end, what kind of stuff is going to be on there? And if we go back to midterm exam, I have this thing here that says Fill 325 Objective Preview. And here I have 4 example questions that are not just like ones that'll be on the exam. I'm actually giving you 4 questions that are on the exam. So 8 points towards that 50 of half the exam grade. Let's take a look at those. So once you click on the Objective Preview, it opens this. Here are 4 questions that are actually from the midterm exam objective content, 2 multiple choice and 2 fill in the blanks. Now in the case of the multiple choice, the A, B, C, Ds are randomized on the actual exam, but here are samples of what the questions are going to be like on there. So let's take a look at these. First one, according to blank, there are no universal standards for moral preferences. And of those options, no, that's not divine command because that comes from God. It's not utilitarianism because that comes from whatever is the best for the greatest number. It's not deontology because that's duty. So it's ethical subjectivism. That's the one that says there are no universal standards for moral preferences. The second one I have here, and let me be clear here too, the numbers here are just the numbers on this sheet of paper. They don't correspond to the numbers they'll actually be on the midterm. That will also be randomized. It says this, with regard to the social contract theory, who claims that in the state of nature, life is nasty, brutish, and short, and is a bellum omnia contra omnes, a war of all against all? Is it John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Elizabeth Anscombe, Thomas Hobbes? Well, it's definitely not Anscombe because she comes into the conversation in the subject of natural law. So it could be Locke, Rousseau, or Hobbes. In this case, it's Hobbes. Hobbes is the one that has the very pessimistic view. Everybody doesn't get along. It's constant war between everyone. And you'll find this in the lectures on rights ethics and the corresponding sways. The next 2 that I have on here, 3 and 4 as they're labeled here, are examples of the fill-in-the-blank questions, of which there are fewer. The majority are actually the multiple choice. So let's take a look at the 2 here. Who said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere? Martin Luther King Jr. That comes up in the topic of rights ethics as well, towards the later stuff in the rights. I think the 3rd lecture on rights. A synonym for negative rights is blank. Blank rights. Those self-evident rights with which one is born and are not conferred through human means. Those are natural rights. Natural rights, same thing as negative rights. So these are 4 sample questions that will actually be on the exam. So there's just 8 free points for you. That way you have a sense of the kinds of questions that I'm going to be asking. Everything comes from the lectures and from the sways in terms of these questions. I'm not looking for things that are obtuse. The things that I've emphasized in the course are the things that I'm going to be examining you upon. And so remember, this exam, completely open note, open lecture, open sway. Have that stuff open while you're doing the exam. Now let's take a look at the rest of the exam. So again, you've got the 25 multiple choice fill-in-the-blank questions, each worth 2 points. So that's 50% of the 100% of the midterm exam. So what's the other 50%? The other 50% is 25% of answering one written question, and the other 25% is answering another written question. So one of these will be submitted here, and the other will be submitted here, Essay 1, Essay 2. You'll notice both of these have attached to it this thing that says Fill 325 Midterm Essays. Let's take a look at that. So when you open that up, you'll get this. There are 4 questions here. You're going to pick any 2 that you want. 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 1, and so on. Pick 2 of these. So here's what they are. I'm going to explain these, first of all, each one of these, and then I'm going to show you how to submit each of them. So you're going to write on 2 of these in a robust paragraph. I'm not looking for a full essay with like an intro paragraph and supporting paragraphs and a conclusion paragraph. Just answer each question here as fully as you can in a robust paragraph. And also in the next couple days, I'll be putting up on Blackboard too from another class with different questions Like, here's an example of an appropriate length for one that looks good, and probably one that's like, here's one that's not good. I don't want you to do this. So I'll do that so you have a sense of like what kind of length I'm looking for. Basically just answer the question as fully as possible. But I don't want it to be a full form essay, and I don't want it to be a short answer either. So let's get to the questions. 1. Of the moral frameworks which have been discussed thus far, subjectivism, cultural relativism, divine command, virtue ethics, natural law, rights ethics, ethical egoism, utilitarianism, and deontology, which do you hold to be the most coherent and defensible? Defend your answer. So I'm asking you, like, if you had to pick one of those, just one, what's the best one, do you think, in your view? And just simply back up what your view is. Defend it. Why do you think this is the best one? Don't just say, like, yeah, deontology is the coolest because it's not stupid. Okay, back it up with evidence. Now, that evidence will be your own point of view, but I want you to back up what you're saying to the best of your ability, why you think that particular view is the most defensible. The second question here is like it, but in the negative. Of the moral frameworks which have been discussed thus far, subjectivism, cultural relativism, divine command, virtue ethics, natural law, rights ethics, ethical egoism, utilitarianism, and deontology, which do you hold to be the least coherent and defensible? Defend your answer. So don't just say something is stupid, back it up. Why is that one the least coherent and least defensible, in your view? Now let me also go ahead and interject here too. These written components are not going to be of the same stricture as, say, the weekly analyses where formatting is a big deal. Like, did you get the line spacing right? Did you put it in 12-point times Roman? Here, I'm kind of ambivalent as to how it's submitted, so long as it's submitted in a way that I can get to easily. I'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. Then here are the third and fourth options. Let's get into this. Number 3. Plato's Euthyphro is, in one sense, a simple story about someone vastly overestimating their knowledge and coming to terms with the fact that they don't know as much as they thought they did. Despite Euthyphro being so confident early on, he eventually became frustrated with his own ignorance in addition to Socrates' questions and gave up. When it comes to matters of ethics and engineering, how do you find this narrative to be relevant today? What relevance, if any, does it have for the relationship of engineers to the public, to consumers, to customers, to clients? So, whole host of questions you could possibly answer here. The whole notion of we have a responsibility to know stuff. If we're going to be experts in something, whether it be like me in philosophy or some of you studying engineering, if you're going to be an expert in that field, what does it mean to know sometimes that you don't know? Or is it morally irresponsible to claim that you do know something when you don't? So in matters of engineering, and we'll talk more about this in the second half of semester too, like, oh yeah, sure, the bridge will be fine. It's fine. Yeah, sure, it's falling apart, but it'll be fine. What kinds of obligations, and we'll talk about obligations in the second half of the semester too, but what kinds of obligations do you think you have here to different groups of people when it comes to wrestling with the question of how much do we actually know? Can we be confident in what we say, again, to the public, to consumers, to customers, to clients, people that you're working for? Oh yeah, sure, we'll take care of it. All the safety checks are done. We're fine. How does this story from Euthyphro apply today? Fourth question. Based upon your present knowledge of utilitarianism and deontology, and I'm picking these two because these are the ones that usually get brought up in modern ethical debates today. Imagine the following scenario. In a large tech company, the personal data of millions of users is leaked online. Their addresses, phone numbers, emails, social security numbers, that kind of thing. This is now thought to be an impending PR and financial disaster for the company. Assume that this company has both deontologists and utilitarians on this task force. So assume they have an ethical task force that talks about, like, what are we going to do with this? What's the right thing to do? And this actually does happen in companies. Companies often hire ethicists to figure out what's the right thing we're supposed to do here. They don't always subscribe to what the ethicists say they ought to do, but sometimes they're on the staff of various companies. How might these utilitarian and deontologist ethicists approach the following problems differently? So what would the utilitarians do? What would the deontologists do, according to your view? How do we fix the problem for users or negate as much damage as possible? Okay, we messed up. We leaked the data out there. What do we do? How do we present ourselves to the public, to the media, and to government and law enforcement officials? So stuff like, well, let's try and contain it. Let's not get it all out there. Maybe let's go ahead and divulge everything now, everything that we know, and just come clean. what do you do? So I'm asking you here, what do you think utilitarians would do? What do you think they would recommend, in your view, based on what you've learned about Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill? And what do you think deontologists would do based on what you've heard about Immanuel Kant and about W.D. Ross and so forth? So the view of like, well, the consequences are what matter versus it's our intention and our goodwill and our duty that what matters. Apply this here. And this fourth question is kind of a preview of what a lot of the stuff in the second half of the semester is going to be like. So these are the 4 questions. Now let me get into how to submit them. So once you've made your 2 selections and you have a week to work on them, because these are also due end of day March 4th, pick one that you want to do. Go here to Midterm Essay 1. And if you've written it as a separate attachment like a Microsoft Word file, a .doc.x, or a PDF, you can simply attach it here where it says browse local files, just like you would have done on a weekly analysis. You can totally do that. Or you can click this write submission button and copy and paste, or go ahead and just write extemporaneously what you want to write here. Do not, however, go down here to where it says add comments and put your submission in here, because this puts it in a sidebar that is very difficult to read and I can't offer any commentary upon. You can add comments if you want to, like have a good spring break. You can put whatever you want there, but don't put your submission here. So either attach it as a separate document or put it in the submission field. So you'll do that for one. Then what you'll do is you'll go back here and you'll choose your other question and submit it here under Midterm Essay 2, whatever your other submission is. Same thing. Browse local files or write submission. You can add your comments as well. Okay, if you want to add comments. So that's how you submit those 2 things. Each one of these 2 things is respectively worth 25% of the midterm exam grade. So that covers it for what the midterm exam is and the stuff that you have to do to complete it. Again, it's due, all of it is due end of day March 4th. It's all completely online. You have complete access to it right now of the moment of this video being available. So you don't have to wait until the 4th to do it. You could start on it here on the time of this coming out is February 25th, 2022. You can start on it now, but it's not due until March 4th, which is a Friday, the Friday before spring break. So get it in before then. If you have any questions about it, of course, reach out to me via email, or you can also reach out to me on Discord as well. Some of you have done that, and again, that's the most effective way to communicate with me. So if you have questions, reach out to me. Otherwise, good luck on this, and have a good spring break. Bye, everybody.